All right, we are back. It is episode 42 of the Lyrical Ones podcast. As I maintain a routine of consistency, of practice, of presence, I am Sineo, and I am joined, as always, Alfluent. How are you doing this evening?
I'm well, like the place where you get water. I am well. I am thriving. I am nourished. I'm hydrated, and I am trying trying to do my best. I'm doing my best to provide hydration for the community. I am well. How you living?
I am, you know, I am constantly here. I'm doing what I can, where I can, how I can. I'm looking forward to some things I got coming and brewing, some things that'll be coming out soon. Been taking some much needed space to reflect on me. It's great to grind and work hard, but it's also great to like really balance that out between some much needed introspective thought and processing of feelings, emotions, just measuring for your own sake of where you come from and where you at and assessing for the future. So, that's where I'm at with it right now. I'm doing all right.
I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear. It's Wednesday. It's March 24. We on the West Coast, evening time, and we episode 40 what?
42. We are episode 42. This is episode 42. We are 42 in, 10 away from 52. Um, it's revolutions, right? Going around the sun. Um, it's a trip. 42, man. We here.
Technically we in the third verse. Technically
Technically.
we on the third 16. Feel me? And being in this third 16, I think it's really important to kind of take time to reflect as often as possible on the influences of the world. I've been talking about discipline a lot lately. A lot of times, discipline has this negative stigma, often because of how it's taught or what it means to people and how it is learned. Even a lot of times, there's a lot of trauma around what discipline means to some people. And I like to think of discipline as whenever you get the opportunity to choose, you do. Whenever you get an opportunity to say yes or no, you say one or the other, right? And that it's based on your choice and not on it's based on your choice and not on the environment or circumstance in which you're in, right? It's not based on the weather um, or the climate, the social climate that's around you. It's like when you say yes, right? It's not a group of people saying no that's going to change your yes, or when you say no, it's not a group of people that's going to change your no. I feel like discipline is that opportunity to say yes or no, and then move forward with that choice. And when it comes, we're often talking about how we navigate in routine, how we create routines, how we create postures, how we practice navigating in a certain way. And earlier today, this morning, even with one of my clients, I was talking about how the body has senses that gets into the brain, right? And the brain then processes and says, this is what these things mean. And the brain makes sense of the senses, right? And the brain has the opportunity to operate without those senses, right? It's usually when we're sleeping, right, is when our brain is doing the most, right, to prepare ourselves for, more work, right? It's doing repairing of our body, is repairing itself, and it's operating without, the sense of taste, the sense of smell, the sense of sight, the sense of touch, sense of hearing, right? It's operating without these things. And if you could diminish those senses just a little bit to dictate instead of just process or receive, right? You could choose how you navigate through the world, right? You could choose how you respond. You could choose how you process things, how you receive, and then respond to those things in the world, right? Those circumstances, the climate, the yeses or the nos. You can choose with discipline or practice discipline, through that choice, right, of yes or no. And I feel like a lot of people are just being pushed in every which direction and not making choices for themselves, not not critical thinking, not making up their own minds about stuff. They're kind of ebbing and flowing with the current, the cancel culture, the 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 mob, if you will, the witch hunt for people who are doing wrong, and think they're misappropriating their energy to the wrong thing, or at least away from the solution. Um, like they say, you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. And sometimes people are just like tossing kindling on the problem, you know, chopping down the solution.
That's so real. That'd be like if you ain't a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. The problem is a part of the solution. It's all a part of each other. And then you bring up a good point. What happens when the solution is like right there, right? And instead of going to the solution, we just chop it down and we just throw it back into the problem, right? Like we know the solution's 100, but we're gonna take one of them zeros and we're gonna throw it right back into the problem to make it a wrench, right? We're gonna put something in the cog to just jam it, right? We
Right.
know we need the tree to build a cabin, but we gonna add it to the fire, right?
Exactly.
And it's
It's like,
but it's what you brought up that I wanted to get before I lost it was this need for individualism, right? This need to like identify me as myself, and then that lack of having critical thought ends only leading you right back into the mob mentality that you stated, right? Like it's all about me, and then I go and find other people who say the same thing, right? I go use them to reinforce that I'm validated in my thought. I'm not going to think of it in a critical sense. I'm not going to think of it in how it's going to impact you, or if I'm even going to be responsible to the impact they'll have on you. I'm just going to go run to the mob, right? It's me, 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 me. Who else say that? I'm with you. All right. Me, 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 me. We all saying it. And it justifies because we all saying it, right? We got the numbers, right? We got our choir. We all singing in unison. Me, 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 right? And then what happens? The other choir like you, right? And it's like, oh, y'all all singing, y'all just on different notes, y'all on different parts of the song, right? Because it's you and me, right? But we not in unison, right? We not together. And so that's my thing that you have brought up that I just wanted to get out. You keep wanting to be you, and then you run right back into everyone else that's trying to do the
yeah,
same thing.
yeah. You focus on you instead of unity. Then you move in by yourself.
Like it's a thing that's so relevant right now because it's always relevant. It's getting more relevant, just given the breakdown of how the world is right now, right? Where we as in the beginning, Alfluent said, San Francisco, California, coming from the West Coast, we are the fallout children, right? We are the fallout children of the world you see, the tech world, right? We are the fallout kids because we are closest to it in so many different ways, right? We are in so many different faculties where like the offspring of this or with the impacted generation that has had to grow up with technology in this way, right? Where it's like the intent is we want everybody to like connect. The impact is anywhere from social revolution to just harm and toxicity. right? Like we trying to change things, overthrow governments. We also gonna harass people. We gonna belittle them. We're gonna tear down their character, and we can do it because it grants us this ability to have a boundary as long as it's not really me and it's an avatar or a representation of who I am.
Right.
I'm gonna say whatever I want. I ain't gotta worry. What I need to worry for? I'm saying whatever I want. I'm gonna say what I feel. I'm gonna say everything, and then what happens? Other people feel the same way I feel, whether it's 5 or 5,000. I got. It's not just me by myself, right? I don't have to feel challenged because now we can say the same thing and just keep feeding each other the same information, not changing anything, not to derive anything new, just to get that comfort of familiarity, right? Like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. You were never alone, but we created a society so driven on individualism that it fed right back into the idea of you need to find somebody, you need to belong to something, right? And it's
Yeah.
granted us access through tech.
I think that's why a lot of people, right, they operate in this space where they don't really want to change the circumstance, right? They want to change the feeling, right? They want to change what they feel, right? You be like, I hate my job, but you show up every day, right? Like, what is the energy you give into this hate, right? Where's the effort you give into this hate, right? If it's so deplorable, right? Why can't you find another way? Why are you working in the same way every day, right? With just enough energy to complain about it, but not enough energy to run away from it, right? So it's not hate, right? You just want to feel different than what you feel every day when you go to work, right? You just want to feel different every day, right? When you have this interaction that's harmful or negative, whatever it is, like folks, see what's happening in the world, and I commend those folks who right now are carving out time in a day to patrol the community, patrol the neighborhoods, patrol the different districts, in a lot of cities across the handful of cities across the country to be extra eyes, be a deterrent to violence, to those who are susceptible and vulnerable to physical harm, to bullying. Right now, we got folks who are, working to support and protect the elderly community and the Asian community right now. And, I want to commend those folks, give them props. And, we coming out of this pandemic, so, you can make the case that, folks don't have the time. But again, right, if it's important to you, it's not a convenience, right? It's like if you care about something, right, you try to find a way, right? And if you don't have the bandwidth, right, you can at least, share with somebody else, right? If you don't have the bandwidth, you try to communicate that, you at your limits, or try to say, pass the word along, right? You try to spread, the word so that it might catch fire in somebody else's heart, right? They may be compelled because, even if, it is close to your heart, sometimes, you end up in this space where you're overwhelmed. And, we need to acknowledge that, more than ever, that, even though it's a world of grinding, shout out to NERD. We was just talking about, the Virginia folks, the clips, and the classic, the classic track grinding. But, in this culture of grinding, right, it's like we're always preaching, do what you can, and do what you're capable of, and, move at your capacity, but also like honor your capacity, right? Honor where your limits are at. And, when you need to, you can get back to plus ultra, and, right, to go back to Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, right, Ascended, Super Saiyan 3, Saber 4, Ultra Instinct. You could, when you find time for that, that's cool. But at the same time, if you got to, take a stroll down Dragon Roll for a bit, because you didn't have to rest, that's all right too. And, when you get to the end of your journey, you can help the people out that you need to help. But it's all right sometimes if you rest and you ease back into the work. It's okay if you ease back into the fight. But sometimes fighting looks different than the man hours or woman hours or the labor. Sometimes the work is smaller and community and interactions and conversations and talking about ego and prejudice and you know belittling people and gaslighting folks and microaggressions and consideration and consent, right? It's having these conversations that protect people in the long run. Sometimes in the short term even, it can change somebody's day, to be seen and heard, and validated in their feelings, you know as you move towards solutions. Say we ain't gonna chop down the tree that has the solution. We'll see how we could get the fruit from that tree instead of just tossing it into the problem without thought.
No, that's real. That is real. It you know, for those that are here, right? Those that are with us that are able to, right? It's just in so many words, right? It's something where I go to a place that exists far before me. It's been here. It's here, right? We talking about the violence that's being done to the Asian community, right? That's what's going on right now. That is what's on everybody. If it ain't on everybody's mind, it's on a lot of people's mind, right? And you gotta zoom out. You gotta start zooming out. And you start seeing more, right? You start seeing war. You start seeing violence. You start seeing trauma. You start seeing pain. You start seeing harm, right? You start seeing just things that are impacting. As much as I try to stay away from it, it's negative because it's toxic. It's hurting, right? People hurting. I'm not trying to excuse, dismiss, minimize anything. I'm just trying to zoom out. I'm just trying to zoom out.
Hmm.
As much as I'm zooming out, it hasn't lost its impact, no matter how fine the details may get or how things may just start becoming a cluster. It's there and it exists. And the thing is that it's difficult, but I can't go the easy way, right? Pyramids last for generations. Something tells me it was difficult to make that, right? It must have took a lot of time, right? We marvel at it, we trying to figure out, we try to decipher, we try to decode, we try to understand. It's nothing to blow it up in an instant. It's nothing to just get something to destroy it. It's gone just like that. So I got to look at that, right? I got to look at, in most cases, I'm not going to sit here and say everybody, but in most cases, it takes about 9 months to produce this being, this other human being, right? It's nothing in an instance to just stab them and they gone, right? It takes 9 months just for them to get to a point where they can be dependent on others, right? They're depending on others for their survival after a point of just being revealed to the world. 9 months just to get to a point where you gotta be dependent still, right? You're not dependent on the internal. You're not dependent on the external. You dependent 9 months. And then from that point, who knows? We try to throw 18 out there as an arbitrary measure of time, right? Who came up with that? I don't know. I can't tell you. I just know 18 is one of them numbers, right? I know 26 is another number when your brain starts to be developed. And people gonna be like, bro, what are you really getting at? How you go from attacks on the Asian community to talking about 26 years old in your brain? I'm gonna get there. Just bear with me because developmentally speaking, your prefrontal cortex, I know it's a lot of words, there's a lot of syllables, there's a lot of things. Prefrontal cortex is your decision making area, right? Decisions are made in the prefrontal cortex. Where this heart is, decisions, they are underneath that. Now, depending on your upbringing and your supports and what you had with stability or not, lack thereof, that will influence how you deal with your decisions that you're gonna make, right? Right? There's all kinds of science, and we're learning constantly about developmental characteristics as you grow. So 9 months plus those years, right? Nothing to just kill at any point, right? Nothing, and just gonna be alarming and hard to hear. A baby, a child, an adult, it's an instant to get rid of them, right? We just went through a global pandemic and people couldn't help but challenge the idea of death, right? Like I'm going out. I don't care what they say. They can't tell me nothing. Community what? Community who? It ain't gonna impact me, then it impacts you. Maybe it didn't impact you. Maybe you didn't know anybody. Maybe you were in the most unfortunate of circumstances fortunate to not experience it in any way, right? Maybe you were. I'm not going to deny that. But I'm going to say, again, back to the individual mindset, right? The lack of community right now. Now, in my ignorance, this is me speaking out of ignorance. I know I'm going to sound so stupid. I'm going to be wrong and let me be wrong by telling me I'm wrong. That's what I'm asking. Tell me, let me know I'm wrong. You hella wrong. You stupid. But let me know. And when you do say that, give me the answer so I can learn. Please help me learn. I'm of the belief, me being black and Latin, that I come from two distinct tribal cultures, right? When we look at Central America, right, there's elements of tribalism based off of history and accounts of what the colonizers and the conquistadors seen when they went to Central America, right? And then West African, right? We think of West Africa and their civilization, their cities, but there's a lot of history and culture there that derive from tribes from thousands of years ago, right? Tribes, each person plays a role working together to maintain the order of the tribe. We could go even further, hunter gatherer, right? Moving in units to go and hunt and gather, right? If you have a farm or a garden, teamwork make the dream work. When you got to make rice, right? You work as a community to grow rice, right? Here we are as Americans, and we've been so far removed from all of that, right? We so far removed. We just got to make it. We got to produce something for the measures, right? I was going to saying 26, well, 18 is how we say you an adult. Who made that number? I don't know, right? We know that full-time job is 40 hours a week, right? How did that happen? Oh, well, at one point they wasn't working 40 hours a week. They was working more than that, right? We didn't have breaks. Somebody had to fight for that. Oh, they came together. It was a union. Oh man, but what about individualism? What about me and what I feel? What about what I want? Right? Nah. I need to get it now. I'm gonna go buy it off of Amazon and I need to show up at my house within 2 days. I don't care how it gets here. I don't care who's hurt. I don't care if you gotta run around for the next 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours. You ain't gonna get a union because I ain't thinking about you. I'm not gonna fight for you. What I want is what I want, and I want it now. Me, you, right? And so I was thinking, like, in my work without the mask, it's the same work. It's just I need some boundaries and separation. I've told you many times, right? It's just about me defining boundaries, right? Get some boundaries, right? I was realizing that for me, I was trying to change things. When George Floyd died, right, which is kind of how the situation came to be with me being here, right? I was hurting and I seen other people hurting, and I had hurt so many times before. I'm not good with pacification. I'm not good with I tried to do it, it didn't work. So I would be in pain when I witnessed people die or people that I know in my community that were harmed. No matter what the harm was, if they harmed, if they life gone, if they that snap of the fingers and Thanos moment, they out. I'm impacted by it, and I'm always trying to figure out a way to prevent it. I've worked in the community for so long to try and keep people safe, to give them community, a sense of belonging, to give them a role or some sense of idea of self amongst a group. That's just who I am. I went to elementary school. I love playing around. After I got out of school and I started to explore the world, I love music. And music was a tool that brought me to a community. And so I brought others into a community with music, right? Lyrical opposition is another community that exists within that same sphere, right? Of just social change and being aware of like how my actions will impact others. And so now it's brought me here and having this conversation with everyone who's going to listen or anyone who's listening about this idea of individualism. Having a good sense of self is one thing, but when it comes into this me, just me, I don't care about you. I don't care what you're going through. I don't care how it's affecting you. I'm eating, I'm paid, I'm good. At some point, you're relying on something or someone, right? It's relying on something created by some other person, right? Like we're looking at what happened in Texas with the electric grid, right? They didn't want to have to deal with federal regulation of kind of how things are, right? And now that because they have this idea of independence, me, their electric grid just couldn't keep up with what people, some denied and some were like, hey, you know, the climate's changing. Maybe we should figure it out. Me. I don't. I ain't with it. Nope. Can't tell me. Can't convince me. The world changed all the time. And then all of a sudden, you got a frozen toilet, right? So here we are now, right? Then that's done happen. All these things that happen, and we're at this moment in time. It's another tragedy, another tragic moment. It just took place in Colorado. Me. Who is he? What is he? Where is he from? What he look like? Right? I couldn't tell. All I see his leg bloody, but from what I'm looking at, he looked like this. And then I find out he that, and now he's that to me. And this is what it means for him to be that, right? Oh, me. This is how I feel. This is how it make me feel. This is what I want to do. This is what needs to happen. Okay. Things are going to continue to happen in a fashion. And I had to look because again, back at work, I'm like, y'all doing things and y'all hurting me, and I'm tired of y'all hurting me. I'm tired of living and just going with the flow. I'm tired of you telling me that's the way it is. I'm tired of being told that that's the status quo. I'm tired of all that. I can't be told that's the way the world is no more. You tell me that, you an enabler. And what are you enabling? When you tell me that's the way it's been historically, in a way to support it continuing, what are you telling me? What are you trying to get across to me and convince me of that every time I bring up an issue and you tell me, well, you know, that's just how that's the culture. That's the industry. That's the way it's been. Right? Oh, that's just how it is. What are you telling me really? That you rather keep on in this fashion, knowing that it's causing me harm, knowing that I might have an alternative. What is happening? And I remember in a meeting, there was an ally, a white ally. They spoke up on beside me. Of course, it was Zoom, so you know, luckily we got the screens, right? But they were like, I was saying how time in the moment was inherently racist, and I was saying that because I work amongst the community where, you know, high school students have been impacted by their time at school or lack thereof, right? Coming to school late. It's such a traumatic experience for some, right? Because I look at a kid and people be like, oh, they look grown, so they grown, it's on it. But they don't run the house, they don't pay the bills, they don't, like 9 times out of 10, they don't even have a license, let alone access to a vehicle. They're dependent on so many different factors to exist. Going back to what I said, remember I was like 9 months in, after that it's like 18 years, but who makes that number? Because, you know, some people live with their parents right now because they need to, and there's no shame in that. That's just a reality of survival right now because of the state of the world. But taking it to a moment where I'm in high school and I'm dealing with people and they're telling me, oh, you got to be here on time. I remember how that used to make me feel. I remember how that used to damage my self-esteem because I felt like I couldn't show up on time. But where was I learning that from? I was learning that from my family, right? Because I was commuting, trying to be a part of a community, right? And then I had to struggle and navigate that, right? And before I knew it, I was coming to school late because it was a struggle to get sleep, right? Because you got to be on a train for an hour, right? You're trying to navigate and just figure out a sense of belonging, a place to be, right? Because maybe things at home ain't always what they need to be, right? And so now I'm seeing it happen again where we continue in this same fashion where what didn't work for me and what got me to the point where I could even be there to be an advocate, I had to find my way, I had to fumble, I had to be an outlier. I had to be an outlier. I had to be an anomaly, right? I had to be the one, right? I had to be the exception. Right. I was blessed enough to be hip and aware and then lucky enough to be in place at a certain moment in time. But when I look to the left and the right and I look at who's with me, it ain't many people from where I started. I lost so much more than I gained when it comes to my community. Right. So I'm looking at what's going on right now and I'm like, why? When I feel like we could change. And my ally in this meeting said, time is one of the characteristics of white supremacy. How we use time and deadlines is a characteristic of white supremacy. And I'm like,
right.
I avoided looking deeper for so long. I was enraged. I was hurt. I spoke up against so many different injustices going on, so many, you know, just inappropriate behavior that was happening. And it got me to the point where I realized that they just saw me as a threat, or they saw me as a nuisance, or they saw me as this thing other than a person who was trying to communicate their pain and trying to work through it, right? It wasn't about them working with me. It was about, how do we professionally develop this, right? How do we use the terms that we have already to define it, to classify it, to put it in a box, to categorize it, and can push it forward, right? And it was like, yeah, well, how do we get you to display healthy relationships with collaborators? Yo, you can try and twist my feelings and my words and minimize the scope of what I'm bringing to you, but it ain't going in, right? So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me shut up. Let me, as they say, put your head down and do the work. That's what they say, right? You don't want to get in the way of the machine, right? I remember that so many times. You don't want to get in the way of the machine. I want to get in the way of the machine. I want to get in the machine. I want to get me a wrench, and I don't want to fix things. I want to break things down, right? But it's like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to burn a bridge. What, I'm gonna burn a bridge by saying it's wrong? Yeah, but you notice the way it is. And not me. So I was looking. I was like, okay. My white ally told me a characteristic of white supremacy is like time. I just said it out of an innate feeling of life experiences that accumulated in this moment where I just had to say it. What else is a characteristic of white supremacy? So I discovered something in the Google. The Google actually produced something of value that wasn't content for me to consume for the sake of throwing away content. It was actually something that was like validating. It made me think. It helped me in a lot of ways, right? And so what I found, right? There's a website called showingupforracialjustice.org, right? Showing up for racialjustice.org/white hyphen supremacy hyphen culture hyphen characteristics.html, right? So I came across this, and I'm gonna just read what I saw, right? So it says the characteristics of white supremacy culture for Dismantling Racism, a workbook for social change groups by Kenneth Jones and Tima Okun, Change Work 2001. And I was like, what is this? Oh no, well, this is what it says. Below is a list of characteristics of white supremacy culture which show up in our organizations. Culture is powerful precisely because it is so present and at the same time so very difficult to name or identify. The characteristics listed below are damaging because they are used as norms and standards without being proactively named or chosen by the group. They are damaging because they promote white supremacy thinking. They are damaging to both people of color and to white people. Think about that. People of color and to white people. White supremacy is damaging to both. Whoa. Did you know that, my white friends and family, brothers and sisters? All them, they, all everyone, all inclusive.
Right.
Did you know that white supremacy was harmful to you? So I go on. Organizations that are people of color led or a majority people of color can also demonstrate many damaging characteristics of white supremacy culture. My people of color, did you know? Because I experienced this so many times. I'd be like, I used to say this very ignorant quote, right? Because it stemmed from Tupac. Tupac said, I might not change the world, but I might inspire the mind that do. And I was like, maybe it's me. So let me say some ignorant stuff like you said, my dear Tupac. African American, we ain't gonna be no African American till we all eat, right? Something like that. Paraphrasing, really horrible. I remember that speech. Go watch Tupac Resurrection, a movie. He said it in there somewhere, but he was talking about the idea of this classism that exists within the black identity within America, right? And I used to have these categories, right? It was like African American, black, and I go say it because I'm never gonna try and waste any of my words on here. So African American,
Understood.
black, and then okay, that's how I classify, I categorized it, right? I was like, when you African American, you look down on the other two, right?
I hear that.
Right? We all exist on the spectrum, but it was like what I experienced and what I witnessed so many times, even in the professional sense, where there would be people who were talking about when you go to school and you get a certificate that says I did time, not prison. I'm talking about you went and you spent money or had somebody spend money on you to say get an education, and this education now validates your existence, right? It puts you on a pedestal, it places you above, and then with that piece of paper you get to look down because you got extra initials on the back of your name sometimes, right? BA, BS, PhD, or MA, whatever the case may be, right? You get your initials, and and you get to draw on the economy to give you more money, regardless of your experience, regardless of your actual experience. This education somehow just has more weight and value all over the United States of America, even though a lot of educated people to me seem dumb as hell. I didn't cuss, I just said dumb in a place that exists very, very low in the South. Not the South is in America, just keep going down. Anyway, so the point I'm saying is, organizations that are people of color led or majority people of color can also demonstrate many damaging characteristics of white supremacy culture.
True.
I didn't write this, but I felt like it was like speaking of my soul. When you hear all this, Alfluent, what goes on in your mind?
It reminds me of the phrase that's used throughout society and culture is we all have the same 24 hours. Right? Like that mindset is damaging to folks, right? Because you take two 5-year-olds and you look at where they grow up. They both catch the bus to the school, but they're in different neighborhoods and they come from different homes and they have different things going on, right? So like, when did their 24 hours look alike, right? To get 24 hours that look alike, you may take their lunches are not the same, right? They're not. They're one is sitting in the front of the class, one is sitting in the back of the class. Their attention span is not the same, right? Their attentiveness, right, is not the same, right? One is getting what they need, the other is not getting what they need in the classroom, right? The time it takes for them to get home to even start on their homework, right, is not the same, right? The amount of support they have at home is not the same, right? The amount of sleep they get at home is not the same. Whether they have breakfast or not is not the same. So when do they 24 hours look like the other? Right? So if all that's happening is every day they have 24 hours going in opposite directions, right? When do their 24 hours look alike, right? Because it's not like a broken clock that, that's right twice a day, right? That it's not like that. It's like, so when you say, well, we all had the same 24 hours. Well, you're saying you have the opportunity to choose, right? And you have to be aware, right? You have to become aware of when that opportunity is. And I think that's the message, but it gets tossed out of context and then becomes something that's harmful into this culture of, work as hard as you can, regardless of your situation, and things will be okay. Like you said, put your head down and work. And like for me, there's a lot of phrases like that where people focus on their own situation and their own experience and say, I was here, and then when I realized that I could do more, I did. And sometimes that realization comes early in life, sometimes it comes later, sometimes it comes at a crux in their life, where they can pivot, and sometimes it's in their careers where they say, well, I've been doing this for 5 years, now I'm gonna switch and do something else. But really, you don't know when that time's gonna come when you realize, hey, I can do more. But whenever you get there, sometimes it's not even about you. And we get a lot of people giving for selfish reasons. And right, that reminds me of the self mentality, right? It's like the performative behavior, right? The support, to be seen as supportive, and right, some people can, stomach it and live that life, and some people, right, would rather not fake the funk. And like, I just want an opportunity all the time, to work toward my capacity that's healthy for me, right? It's like, if I focus on the health, right, and I focus on what is going to benefit me, I'll say, oh, well, yeah, I'm selfish, right? Or my intention is to move efficiently, proficiently in community, right, without burning myself out, right, without burning the candle at both ends, right? It's like if I can, right, light something and then pass the torch, right? I yes, so it's nice to spark minds and spark thought and you know help people come to realizations about how they show up in community and say, oh, well, you really messing up, or you really doing these folks dirty, or you really could have done that better, or you really could have handled that better, or you could responded differently than that. You didn't have to show up in your anger. You didn't have to show up in your pride. You didn't have to show up in your ego. You didn't have to show up in your privilege, but you did. And how you gonna switch it up? Like having the opportunities to do that is great, but it can get tiring. And I just always want to operate in that space of, am I doing enough to be healthy? And am I doing enough, right, to help heal? Right? Because it's a lot of stuff that's going wrong in the world. But again, right, looking at those solutions and saying, where can we mobilize after we organize? Right? It's like, okay, we gonna gather, but where we gonna move to? Right? How do we start making, right, utopias in a week at a time? Right? Utopian moments. I say, oh, well, we could do this on a regular. How can we connect the two moments where everybody who was in the first moment makes it to the second moment, right? Without being killed, without being harmed, right? Without incurring more trauma. How can we connect those moments, those utopian moments, instead of saying, okay, we just cycle these people out and then cycle some new people in who's excited to come to the next rally, cycle some new voices in, right? Some new energy in, right? To show up and engage for a moment and then disengage next week. And then we have some new people come in. And then after we done spent everybody's energy, right? And didn't really give nothing back to nobody. We just, right, if we just take and use that energy, then we just, it's sweep, new cycle. Let's support some other community, or let's support some other function, and move that way. But I really would like to connect those moments, with community, because it's wild. It's like there's a lot of public messages of support out there, but I don't see. Well, I'm just not seeing some of the work, and some of the work is not in in my view, in my vantage point, and that's cool too. But it's, as an individual and as a member of community, I know that there's more for me to do, and as much as I would like to say, ask folks to do more, maybe pass on the messages to a company or institution, with the resources to kind of do more in support of folks that are doing what they can.
You mean like the Activision Blizzard CEO who got the 200 million like performance bonus, and then let some employees go and gave them gift cards? You mean like that?
Yeah, gift cards, man.
Gave them gift cards as a severance package. Like, hey, we ain't gonna keep you, right? Hey, what's up, Figo? Right on. Salute. I appreciate you.
Figo Navarro in on YouTube.
Yeah,
love you, bro. We got music coming out.
He do got some.
We got an EP coming out next month.
He does. We gonna have a time for that. We definitely are.
Ooh, salute to that.
Yeah, for a part of the movement. You brought up a good point, right? You got to talking to those that have power, right? There's someone on that's I follow on that's interested on Twitter. I don't know if you follow him, Dan Price. You heard of Dan Price? He's the one that changed his company into being like minimum wage of $70,000 for every employee. Like every employee gets $70,000 because he took a pay cut and he found a way to navigate and create and have his business expand and grow and be able to pay everybody in his in his company $70,000. Now, of course, people gonna be like, it's an outlier. Not everybody can do that. You whatever. He
Right,
did it.
but fair trade matters, and it's a you can find a way to
Find
get
a way
certified, right? Certified as a fair trade company.
if you're looking. Right. If
Yeah,
you're
if you
looking
look
for
at
a way, you're gonna find a way, right? And this man found a way, right? American company based, I believe, in Washington in the Seattle area, right? Found a way to get everybody paid $70,000. Now it's unique in that sense, but it's constant motivation for me because I can't help but like let the toxic ooze out. Let me let this toxicity ooze out for just a little bit, right? I remember some of my
fine.
coworkers were taking time off because of what was going on with the president, right? This was prior to the election. People, it was all these things. They were seeing the debates, they were getting stressed out, they were taking time off. And I'm like, I couldn't help but be toxic because I was like, do you know what I've been through in my life? Do you know what I'm going through right now? And I ain't take no days off. How dare you?
That's
Because
so toxic.
this man, because what he said, you want to take some days off. When all this other stuff was going down, you wasn't. Oh, I can't. I'm having trouble sleeping at night. I can't focus at work. I can't seem to get my thoughts together. I can't even. It's so stress. Look. Now I was going into the me's, right? I was going into
Shit, that's so
what
toxic.
what I've been through, what my people been through, right? What I lived through, what I'm going through, right? What I see on a daily, right? What just ain't gonna change. And as soon as it was like, oh, we going from oh boy to oh boy, celebration, y'all popping. What? I don't get to celebrate. I don't get to feel that way, right?
I do
We can,
not get to celebrate.
I don't get what victory was this for me, right?
Dang.
Right? Your managers is not my leaders. Managers are for systems. Systems are for control. Leaders are for people. Leaders help guide, right? So I've been surrounded by so many people who I feel like are just managers. They just managing systems for control. They're not trying to lead people to further innovate, grow, expand, to develop. They just trying to maintain the status quo, maintenance, management, right? And I'm like, ooh, yeah, this is what y'all doing to me. And y'all want to go take a day off because you having a panic attack because Trump just said something, just let off some racist tirade. Yo, even though I'm from San Francisco and I've had the experience of diversity in the communities, I've experienced racism. I've seen it impact my youngers, my olders, and it's impacted me, right? And so he say some things that make you uncomfortable, but it ain't really about you because it's still on. He's coming from your side, even if you ain't on the same say side of the whatever you want to call it, whatever the spectrum, the compass is, whatever, right? But for me, I'm like, yo, as painful as this is, this still on the same. This it's all the same. It ain't changed just because somebody new face is here, right? Because I'm looking at it as it is now, and it's like we're still dealing with it, right? He didn't create it. He supported it. He pushed it along, and here we are. We're dealing with it, right? And again, how did he get there? Because of the me's, right? Because it was people who didn't feel like they had a voice that found a voice in this person. And here we are
Right.
again, where people feel like they don't have a voice, and yet they're finding ways to show, to give, and it's not helpful. It's not healthy. It's not contribution to society. It's damaging. It's hurtful. It's like we have to now have people live in fear, right? I done had people bring up trauma in different ways at different points due to the work, right? And it's like, ooh, I can't let it sit, right? I'm not going to attack somebody. I'm not going to berate them. I'm not going to try and blame and shame them, but I'm going to try to reach them. I'm going to try to connect with them authentically because it's some people that I love. It's some people I don't know. It's some people on different levels, right? Some white, some not, some whatever, right? Black, some Latin, right? Some coming from different regions, different countries, different lands. Some just homegrown, but I'm going to try and connect on a genuine level to get to know them so I can have the proper communication that they need to reach them where they are so we can progress, so we can grow. Because, yeah, like you're right, like maybe we can't see the change happening, right? But let me go back to what I said. Managers aren't leaders. I see a lot of managers. I see a lot of people trying to manage and maintain. They maintenance people, right? They're not innovators. They're not trying to be. I remember they was like, I remember I seen an interview. See, I'm going way all. Pharrell had said, "Oh, you know what? Who I would love to see in supporting change for the better? Elon Musk." I'm like, why would you want a man who makes cars and rockets to deal with people when his interest has been in the mechanics of creating technology that's more or less for travel, right? He's been involved in tech and technology. That's not relationships. That's not trauma. That's not social issues. I appreciate his genius for what it does, but I will never take that and just fixate on the creative merits and think that that applies to people, right? Batteries are, they're not necessarily disposable, but they don't necessarily have feelings, right? They don't, they don't have emotions, right? Rockets, when they drop down from the sky, they not screaming for help. They not, right? They blow up and that's it, right? People, that's not how people are. People are like that. We may try to put them in a rocket or we might try to put them in a car. We might try to have them use the battery. But when the damage happens, the reaction is much different than these inanimate objects that have no brains or weren't born, right? They didn't develop in the 9 month period of time. Maybe there was some R&D. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to say he didn't father some vehicles, but I am going to say it's not the same. It's very different.
Silly.
I'm just going to say. I'm just saying, right? I appreciate his genius and I appreciate Pharrell. Pharrell means so much to me. Come on. We just grinding. 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 Right. And,
Yeah.
I love Pharrell. Right. But again, that's somebody whose contribution is music and uplifting me in that way. I done spent my time in the community. I done spent my time in social change and dealing with all these different issues. Right. People be like, politics. Why you got to talk about politics? Policies, right, or for people, right, to maintain a status quo in a system, right? Sometimes it changes if you're able to get the right policy in front of the right people, right? It's all people at the end of the day, right? And they be like, oh, how does it impact you? This is how it impacts me, right? I come from a family where, from what I can remember, majority of them being black from San Francisco, right, spread out from being in San Francisco to now all over parts of California. And over time, a lot of them died, right? They died due to health concerns. And it's like, well, how does that play into policy? Well, zoning, right? We look into redlining. We look into the impact, the multi-generational impact of redlining. What's redlining? Redlining, we said it so many times before, but I'll be happy to kind of go over it again, right? That's back in the day when the government decided to create policies, politics. Oh my God, here it goes, right? White supremacy. So they created these designated areas in metropolitan places, and they said this is where we'll give people loans if they're black, and this is where we'll give people loans if they're not, right? And so they broke it down in color-coded maps, and people got to buy homes. And then what happened? Well, because the value of property is not valued the same, your level of equity is different. So you don't have the same financial capital as someone in a different region, a different part, right? And so in my family, right, that impacted everybody because then it meant, well, if I'm trying to buy a home, I may not be able to get a loan in certain areas or certain places. And it's not to say that the policy is still in place, but the practice is, right? It's ingrained. White supremacy, it's in people, right? They don't even know that they perpetuating this, but they doing it, right? And it still exists today, right? You could go look at any little news that, may make some people uncomfortable. Like, bro, what you mean? Like, well, black couple has a home, gets it appraised, the value's low. They get their white friends to come, put the pictures away. Now the value is worth more. Why is that? White supremacy. So the thing is, my family who passed away, a lot of them with health issues, right? And we look at food deserts, right? And we look at the access to healthy foods and what it means to have healthy food, right? And then we look at the dynamics of the economy in terms of where you work and how you work and how much time you put into your work, and then traveling and all these other things, these things, right? If you can't live close to where you work, that means you got to live farther away. And if you don't have enough time, going back to what Affluent said about not having 24 hours in a day the same way as the other person has 24 hours in a day, because it looks very different depending on where you at in the world, right? What did you inherit? Did you inherit 24 hours or did you inherit 12? Right?
Ooh,
What did you inherit? Did you inherit 6 or did you inherit a week? I don't know. It's different for everybody, right? And these
some people inherited time on their hands. Like I can't. I got too much.
I got so much with it, right? And the thing is, the policies help perpetuate that, right? So when you have laws going into the brain, we're talking about prefrontal cortex, and we saying 26 years old, that's when the brain's done developing. But we're gonna say you an adult when you 18, so that means you have a good 6 years before your brain is fully done baking, and we're gonna blame you for any decision that you make because you 18. Wait a minute, but your brain ain't done until you 26. So I'm gonna make decisions based off of policies that existed and predate me because I don't have the economic or access or the support that I need around me to do things. And my brain, based off of the limited information and the deindustrialization of this country, I now have a family that's fractured because what we once had to gain wealth, we don't have, right? So now here we are. I'm in this moment. I need something, right? I got to get it, right? And I make a decision that's life altering because it may just have damaged and harmed someone, and now it's damaged and harmed me because now I'm a part of another system, policies, right? That these policies now control me and how I live, how I operate. Rehabilitation is what they say, right? We put you in a penitentiary, we put you in a prison, we put you in a jail. We're gonna rehabilitate you, rehabilitate. When I've dealt with a physical therapist, you know, Alfluent, you may relate, when they rehabilitate me, it's like it's some level of discomfort, but after a while, I get stronger and I get better and I feel good, right? When I witnessed my family members who went to jail, they're like, I ain't never going back. I'm like, what did you get from it? Some of them got some good from it, but mostly it was trauma. Mostly it was harm. Mostly it was like, if I end up doing what I did, they gonna have to kill me. They just gonna have to. I'm gonna run and I'm gonna make it, or they just gonna have to take me out because I'm not coming back here, right? So you didn't really rehabilitate them to have access to something more to make them believe that they could actually stay away. If anything, you just made them realize that their life expectancy might be a lot different than what they thought, right? And so all these policies, politics, these things people create impact people differently, right? And so when I'm looking at this list of these characteristics, which I haven't gotten into yet, but I do want to get into, right? I want to just lightly just, go over some, right? So as I said, right, white people, it impacts you. White supremacy, it does in a negative, harmful way. It does, not all, but some, right? And probably a lot, right? Because this country, majority, you look at the numbers, just looking at numbers, maybe they're wrong, maybe they're lying, but it's a lot of y'all. So probably a lot of y'all, right? And then we think of color folk and those that are maybe in successful positions, maybe using it as a way to leverage themselves to maintain that distance in space. I'm just saying, I'm not blaming anybody, not pointing no fingers. You just take it, you own it if you need to. If you don't, it's all good. But this is the first one on the list. I'm not going to read the whole thing, right? Y'all have access to it. It's showing up for racialjustice.org/white supremacy hyphen supremacy hyphen culture hyphen characteristics.html, right? Showing up for racialjustice.org/white hyphen supremacy hyphen culture hyphen characteristics.html. So this is the first one on the list. Perfectionism. This is a characteristics of white supremacy, right? The first one I see is perfectionism. Little appreciation expressed among people for the work that others are doing. Appreciation that is expressed usually directed to those who get most of the credit anyway. Another point is more common is to point out either how the person or work is inadequate, right? We're not going to point out, oh, how good it is. Let's point out how inadequate it is, right? How it's just, it don't work. Or even more common, to talk to others about the inadequacies of a person, of their work, without ever talking directly to the person, right? We're not going to talk directly to you. We're going to talk about what you did to others, right? We're going to create a narrative. We're going to control the narrative. We're going to control the story around you. We're not going to come to you, right? Mistakes are seen as personal. They reflect badly on the person making them as opposed to being seen for what they are. Mistakes, right, don't mean that you're horrible. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It's not a determining factor of self-worth. Mistakes are something that just happens as a result of learning, right? How many times have you ever sit in class? I know I've said this so many times in other episodes, but you don't know that. Did nobody teach you? How did you get here? How did they allow you to come to this? You don't know that? Those are harmful words, right? Any other context, right? It's like, wait, hold on. Shoot. Why you say it like that? Why you got to say it like that? Because if I don't cry, I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get angry. You ain't going to let me. I ain't going to look like no punk out here. I'm going to get angry, right? Now, the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. It's an opportunity for discovery to be right. But we don't do it like that. They be like, oh, you don't even know. Psh, you just don't know. You don't know. I'm supposed to teach you, but I don't act like I'm supposed to teach you. I don't even act like I'm eager or happy to teach you. But the system was created and you didn't get to decide how it was created. You inherited it. Okay. So perfectionism, right? When you think of perfectionism, I didn't go over every point, but Alfluent, how do you see perfectionism play a role in your life or just in what you've experienced with others and how that may be crippling, right? To try and live up to this idea of perfection, to live up to this status quo, this threshold of I got to set the bar high.
It's illusion living, right? It's like at some point, even what you call perfection, right, is acceptance, right? You checking boxes until you get to a point of acceptance, right? Even if you call something perfect, right? Perfection doesn't happen, right? You create parameters, right, that say, right, 100%. If nobody's doing the exact same work, right, unless it's like multiple choice, but if nobody's doing the exact same work and then everybody gets 100% credit, right, who is actually perfect in the first place, right? It's the only person who can decide that is the one evaluating, right? And so whoever you give the power to evaluate to, right, then they're the ones that decide whether you're perfect or not, right? Then if you try to adopt, their parameters, right, what are you killing yourself for? What are you taking yourself through for? What are you stressing for? If the parameters for perfection, it's not even something you created. It's not even based on something that you believe in. That's what I think about it.
I mean, it's crazy because it's so real how people will adopt something just to belong, right? Like that's what y'all say. That's what y'all say. Okay, well I'm in. I'm gonna do it, right? I might not agree with it. I might be crying on the inside. I might just be pacifying myself and trying to subdue my emotions and fit within your lines. Maybe I need all these other additional supports that exist on this broader spectrum in this universe of you told me this is what it is, so I need to find a way to adopt that belief even if it just deteriorates whoever I used to be.
Can't do it. I can't do it. I can't adopt somebody's parameters just cause I think that's the thing with like religion. Like you have to go so deep and so far past what's initially given to you just to find a relationship with the creator, just to find a relationship that of a relationship with the entity, with the deity, with God, a singular God who has already forgiven you and loved you for all your mistakes. It said you're worthy of love. Like, what do you need to be perfect for? Unless he didn't make no mistakes and created you as you were supposed to be made, right? It's like blades of grass are not identical, but each one is made exactly how it's supposed to be and functions exactly how it's supposed to function, right? It's like a deformed blade of grass. Nah, it's just like either it's in a space where it's got the nutrients it needs or it doesn't. So like if people are not getting the nutrients that they need, how can they even move toward who they're supposed to be? So people got to acknowledge, say, man, I'm gonna play the grass, and I'm not even in the rich soil. I'm not even getting nourished here. But people are not even evaluating that for themselves, right? And the system that they in, the government that they in, the administration is not saying, man, we need to put these people in rich soil so they could grow up. These kids need to be in rich soil. They need to be nourished. They need to be nurtured. They need to get what they need so they could grow up and move in their purpose, move what they designed to do. They're not identical, but they can all have an opportunity to find their gifts if they nourish right. Right? Like, what is the epitome of your genetic potential? What is the epitome of your kinetic potential? Potential? What is the epitome, right? The apex of your mental capacity, your spiritual growth? You may not ever know if you're not feeding yourself, feeding your brain, feeding your spirit, feeding your heart, feeding your body what it needs to move toward its best. But we're not even teaching that, at a young point, right? We like get, right? Acquire, consume everything that this culture, this system has for you, right? Fast money, slow money, whatever it is, right? Go get that instead of what you may already have. Maybe you have all that you need within yourself and your ability to create interaction, create community with family, right? And say, okay, well, let's start taking what they have, right? So you need a mom and a dad, or right, science, XY chromosome, whatever you need to be born, and then let's start pulling and yanking from what you have, right? So now you have less than what you're supposed to have, or with at least what you started with in your journey. And now you in a space of, oh yeah, I do got to get because I ain't got that. So now I do have to get because I ain't got that. They got cousins, I got cousins. They got siblings, I ain't got siblings. They got mom, I ain't got no mom. Right? I ain't got no culture. I ain't got nothing to be proud of. Everybody I see that's proud of something, that's happy about something, they flexing. I got nothing to flex about. Maybe what you need to be, maybe what we can flex on is already here, and maybe it's not necessarily something that you show off, but you nurture and nourish, right, till it blooms, right, till it bears fruit. And it's wild because folks could really say, oh man, well, they're trying to have me show up when? Nah. they, they they want me to jump through what hoop? For who? For what? For what? For what baseline? For what overhead? For for what performance review? What expectations? It's like exceeds expectations. What about what I expect from myself? What about my integrity, right? Like maybe my integrity is my yes being yes and my no being no. Maybe that's enough integrity. Maybe that's enough. Are those expectations good enough? Can we work there?
I mean, no. What I mean, like to me, it's the whole the idea of like who set the measuring tape where it was, right? Like who said this is where it's at, right? This is where we going to. They picking up something that they got from the guy before them or the woman before them, whoever came before them. They got that from them, and now they running with it, right? and they just picking it up and running with it, right? Not ever questioning, right? Because as soon as you start to question, you deemed as difficult. Why are you question? Why are you? And it's like, why not? But this is how we've done it. This is how it's been. It's worked. It works for who? For some. Well, not as it's not what you think, right? That's what it is. As soon as you start to say it don't work for everybody, but it works for some, right? That's where they go. You say it don't work for everybody, they say it works for some. So we concerned with the sum. We not concerned with the whole, right?
Ooh,
Okay.
that 95% vaccination, that 84% vaccination, that new one just
Don't
came
go down
out,
that road.
that
Don't get me
70,
started.
that
Don't.
74%. I'm just saying the sum when we talking about the few,
But
right?
that's what I'm saying is we right. That's. I mean, I seen it the other day. Somebody had said something along the lines of how much California had lost because they weren't open, right? And they were comparing rates to what had happened in other states that were open. And I was like, oh, that's right. Let's just minimize all the lives lost for the sake of whatever economic situation, right? Because that's what we bound to. We're really stressed out about that. We're really stressed about this system that we inherited that we just said this is what it is, right? And we're not gonna put a pause on it. We're not gonna stop it. We're gonna keep it going and figure out how to just navigate so some people can thrive, right? We're not gonna redistribute anything. Why would we, right? Why would we redistribute any sense of financial capital if there's some who are making astronomical numbers? That's just not the way of the world, right? We don't reinforce it, we don't support it, we don't get behind it, right? I'm not saying you got to do it forever because as we see, nothing about the situation is forever. Everything has changed and it's continually evolving. But there could have been some, as we do the math and we look back, some things could have happened to help alleviate the pressures people were facing, right? And that's not what happened. What happened? Things kept going, things didn't slow, things didn't stop. And so they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna debate whether or not we want to give you a check. We want you to stay home though. We don't know how you're gonna live. We don't know how you're gonna eat, but we might just get you a check. We're gonna get you a check regardless of the fact that we for a year 12 months things have added up. Here's a little bit to alleviate some pressure, right? And it's not to minimize what it's doing for some, but it's also not to take away what it isn't doing for others.
Yeah.
And like what you were saying about earlier about like the utopian thing, right? And how people always be like, oh, ain't no such thing. And it's like it's no such thing as long as we don't work towards it, right? If we don't try out something, we never know. And I'm not saying what others have done. I'm saying seeing where did they fail, seeing where did it work, seeing that in comparison and contrast to what works for us and what doesn't work. Because we always want to, we quick to be like, well, if you don't like it, leave. You don't like it, leave. Do you think anybody liked it? Oh, why are you bringing up the past? Because the past is what it's founded on. When someone left and came here, when they didn't like it, right? What did they do? Well, they kill people. That's what they did. Whether directly or indirectly, they kill people. They destroy people, right? Oh, they didn't like it over there, so they came over here and it was like it's ours now, right? You don't own this. We own it based off of what? An adaptation of the same rules and practices that existed from where they left, right? They
Right.
adopted elements of what they left, brought it here, and then they got the nerve to tell you if you don't like it, leave. Leave to where? Because you have your feet, your roots. You've planted so many seeds in so many different places where it's permeated and it shows up, right? An overthrow of a government over here, right? The death of a journalist over here, the imprisonment of so many people, which is just enslavement. Let's keep it real. Imprisonment is just enslavement. It's just a different form of enslavement. So enslavement of people over here, right? The breakdown
That's
of
true.
economy over here, right? You don't like it, leave. Leave to where? Where do you exist that I can actually have a sustainable life and don't have to deal with the ramifications of your intrusiveness, right? Of your micromanagement of resources across the scope of this world, right? You don't like it, leave, right? Nah, I can't. I got to stay and fight because that's what y'all did. Y'all fought it out. Now I got to fight it out. Maybe it's not the same fight, right? I know some of y'all willing to go and kill. I know. Y'all just We done seen it. We done seen it. Y'all still doing
Right.
it. Some of
Right.
y'all just ready. Y'all can't wait. I'm not saying it in that way. I'm going to try and exercise a different method, right? This is one of many methods, right? I'm communicating to people about the possibility for change, right? I'm identifying characteristics of white supremacy that we all live with under, and how you could reflect and think, what can you do, right? When it comes to perfectionism, I got to show up and make sure the communication, I'm reinforcing the destruction of perfectionism, where I'm giving space for mistakes, for moments of growth, where I'm reinforcing it in a positive way, where I'm calling out people in authority positions who belittle, demean, dismiss, and hurt people because they didn't get it right. Right?
Right.
I got to call it out. I'm saying that's what I'm willing to do. I'm not saying you got to do it. I'm not saying anybody got to do anything. I'm saying think about it. Think about what you could do. And that's what I'm willing to do, right? When I bring children into this world and they have to go into these systems, I'm going to reinforce this, the destruction of perfectionism, right? Because I was saying the practice is perfection, right? I wasn't saying the outcome of what it is. I'm saying when you're able to maintain that consistency is the perfection. When you're able to maintain that routine, or as Alfluent said, that discipline, right? That the association of the word discipline, I'm gonna whip you, right? If y'all on the audio only version earlier when he was talking about discipline, I got my headphones out and I started whipping my computer. I was like, if you don't shut your if you, I'm gonna hit my computer, right? Discipline, right? That association with that word, just to reinforce what Alfluent said earlier, right? We often take it in the context of I'm being disciplined instead of I have a discipline, right? I'm gonna do what needs to be done regardless of whether I want to do it, right? I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna clean up, I'm gonna cook, I'm gonna get up early. I'm gonna take this discipline and I'm gonna take this time, right? But it takes someone to help train you or show you or learn. Now, we got YouTube University, so there's a little support out there for those that are technologically able. And I know that we got people watching on YouTube, so you find it how you get it. But learn about discipline, learn about the many forms among the spectrum of what discipline means beyond punitive or corporal punishment, right? Beyond harm, right? Discipline in the sense of committing yourself to a routine and saying, I'm going to do this regardless of how I feel because I know the outcome will better myself, regardless of how I feel, because I know the outcome will better myself. Now, me, yes, my trauma, some of it that I've shared with you today is why I maintain the discipline, because it helps me better myself when I don't feel like bettering myself, right? I'm here presently 42 episodes in because of the routine that I've been able to manage, right? So I can have some discipline, right? The practice in the perfection, not the perfection of the outcome, not the result. It's the journey. Can I maintain and sustain the journey? That's perfection, not the vessel that I'm in, right? Not the vehicle, right? But if I can maintain the vehicle, right? The consistency in it, right? And not holding it against myself when I'm unable to do it, when I'm unable to be consistent, when I need to take a break, when I'm just not with it, but to come back to it, right? Now, another one that I'm going to touch on because I'm like, man, it's a lot. It's a lot of them. I think it's 14 different ones, right? But we're going to get a couple. This was the one that I was talking about that I love to talk about. Sense of urgency. Continued sense of urgency that makes it difficult to take time to be inclusive, encourage democratic and or thoughtful decision making, to think long term, to consider consequences, frequently results in sacrificing potential allies for quick or highly visible results. For example, sacrificing interests of communities of color in order to win victories for white people, seen as default or the norm community, right? So, what this is, right? That continued sense of urgency. So, we're not taking time, right? We're not going to take the time to really comb through and break down what is it that we really need and how do we define it so we can go for it. We're just going to say we need a deadline and we're going to stick to this deadline. So what does that mean? Things get left out along the way. We're thinking anxiously because we're thinking of the potential for the future of what may happen. We're not thinking about the problem anymore. We're thinking about the problem as it exists with this measure of time. We're not thinking of being careful. We're thinking of how do we get rid of things so we can just focus on what we can so we can get across the finish line at that certain time. It's not a race. It's not a competition, but we treat it like that when we throw in deadlines, right? Now, deadlines, I'm not saying are necessarily harmful in all contexts and all ways. Sometimes you need a deadline for certain things. I get that in the sense of engineering and mechanics, but when it comes to people and systems that are for people, right? I don't even agree for systems for people, but some of y'all really like these systems, right? I like routines, I like practices, I like approaches, I like philosophies, right? We can adapt those, they can alter and they can change, they can evolve. But systems, something about it just give me the heebie jeebies, right? It's like, oh, how many people on the boat? Well, we have a system to maintain track and management of people on the boat. And when they get off the boat, we got another system to get rid of them, to disperse them, to distribute. It's a system, right? I mean, it is what it is. But beyond that, right? That sense of urgency, like I said, goes back to that idea of, do you have the same hours in a day, right? Alfluent said, right? Everybody got the same 24 hours. That is an exceptionally flawed statement, right? Some of us are blessed enough to benefit from our luck, and we don't want to see that, right? You pick yourself up by your bootstraps. What happens if you ain't got no feet? What happens if you ain't got no legs? Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You ain't got no boots. Some ain't got no feet. Some ain't got no toes. Some ain't got no ankles. Some ain't got no knees. Some ain't barely got half a body, right? And that's in the literal and the metaphorical sense, right? We trying to be all inclusive. But it's a thing to take into account, right? You say that by dismissing, minimizing everything they've been through because maybe you had access to something, someone, or an intervention at some point that supported you on your journey. And now it's reinforced this belief, I did it on my own. You didn't do it on your own. You didn't do anything on your own. You were granted access at some point to something at some time, right? If this was around the plague, right? Well, talk about luck, right? Talk about where you are, right? World War II, talk about luck. Talk about where you are. Chances of survival, depending on where you are, depending on the platoon you in, depending on what time you enrolled, right? You enlisted, you were drafted. But nah. You did it. You made that happen. You have the ability to craft the universe as you see fit for what you need at every given moment. Man, much power to you. Many applause. Because that ain't the reality for everybody. If it is, man, you are selfish. Right? But that's what I'm saying. That sense of urgency feeds into that. Feeds into that notion and idea that you can't do in the same time that I did. No. What you had at that time was for you in that time. And how urgent you make things limits others from being able to have access to time. Right? And that's the thing. Affluent. How do you see that sense of urgency play out and shape people? Right? I gotta get it, gotta have it. It's old now. I don't want it.
Well, I think it's morphed into this feeling of validation that's hungered and thirsted after, for folks to feel, worthy. They seeking that validation, through social media, through consumerism, through merchandising, right? Folks finding identity through superhero TV shows and shirts and things, and folks saying, well, I need to know what happened in the show, right, so I can have the conversation and be a part of the community, right? It's like I need to know what happened, or I need to get the game, or I need to play right away, right, so that I can be a part of the community. Same thing. It's like the sense of urgency of, I need to join in, right? I need to be in the conversation. And again, right, it's like that sense of belonging, right, manifests in that way, right? That I can be included, or I should be included, right, because I have, right, or because I achieved, right, or I arrived, or because I graduated, or because of where I grew up, I right can be included. I should be included. And if I miss that opportunity, then I can't be included. I missed the opportunity to be included, to be in the conversation, right? To be a part of the movement, and the urgency, like when the moment is gone or the movement is gone, right? Or the opportunity to be a part of the community is gone, right? And so is that energy and that sense of urgency, right? Because it's not always about a health thing, right? It's not a life or death thing, right? It's about a social life or death almost, that's fleeting and momentary, right? Because the social death is not forever. We see that, in multiple comebacks in multiple ways.
Yeah, I mean, it plays out in so many different forms, in so many different ways. And it's something where we're bound to a lot of this. We exist on the spectrum together in this. It's not to blame, shame, or guilt, even though I know I got a little toxic. But it is to say that we all share a piece in this. We share our own collective, whatever your hands is placed on is still on this planet. And you have every right to not feel engaged and not want to be a part of it, but you are. And I'm just hoping that some can acknowledge, reflect, because this is an ongoing conversation. This isn't something that's just for this moment. It's forever because it's been going on. It still goes on.
True.
And so how we come together on this means a lot for people that you may not know, or it may mean a lot for you and you just don't know it yet, right? I've had friends who was like, I don't see color. And it wasn't until they were placed in certain moments of time to discover for themselves color exists that they were like, oh yeah, you know what? I realize it do, right?
Yeah, and it's not even just like ethnicities, right? It's like it's genders, right? It's
It's identities.
it's ages, right? It's demographics, it's identities for sure. And identities are complex. And the moment we think that they are not complex, right, is the moment that we are looking over or leaving somebody out,
Oh,
right?
that's
That
real.
otherism.
Otherism. Me, you. Me, you.
Y'all, them.
Yeah. Well, serve no y'all. I don't want no y'all. I just want a cheeseburger. But, you know, it's just something to take into account on this episode 42 of the Lyrical Ones podcast. You know, it ain't final as in this is it, but for episode 42 it's final. Alfluent, any final thoughts as we come to a close on this episode 42?
Yes, I look after each other so that no one else has to watch their own back. Watch each other's backs so you don't have to worry about watching your own back. We're in a time where we can communicate across oceans, across continents, but it's the people that are close to us, our neighbors that are in proximity to us, that are on the bus routes with us, that are walking the same streets to work or to dinner or to lunch. It's the people that are outside, in our communities, that need backup, they need assistance, they need protection, they need support. And yeah, we can focus on what's not happening for you or what's not happening for self. And you know, if we continue to think of the self, then we see our lives as running out. and not the abundant lives that they are in community. Um, and in community, we can all be a resource to each other. And in community, we can all be shelters and shade, um, and warmth for each other. But it takes that individual shifting its thinking and recruiting others to shift also. And we all got, different experiences with family, which is why, the word tribe, has become, a strong way, um, weighted word, in communities lately. But that tribalism can be dangerous as well. So it's as you part of units and find a way to, move as a unit.
G-Unit. I mean, I'm with it. For my final thoughts, what I want to do is just have a moment of silence, 10 seconds for the lives lost in Colorado. Starting now. It's my hope that yeah, people can come back to being people, being a community. Matter of fact, be a better community. Can grow to be a better community. Innovate into something greater and grander than what it is now. There is some good, but there could be more good. And that's where I'm going to leave it for this episode, Lyrical Ones, as we like to do at this time.
One can't do nothing with that.